Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hi, welcome to Politically Correct. In this episode, I'm going to talk about Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar, his handling of the farmers' agitation, and in that context, I'll try to explain how Khattar has become a symbol of certain fault lines in the BJP, or I would say a big drawback in Modi's political strategy when it comes to picking up leaders in states. But before I start that, let me quote my favorite BJP MP Subramanian Swamy, favorite in the sense I really love his one-liners and his witty comments. After the finance minister's speech, he was asked about the speech actually, like how long it was. And then he quoted US President Lincoln saying that if I'm short of time, I make a longer speech. But if I have plenty of time, I make a short speech. Now, his statements are always loaded. I'm not getting into that. But why I'm referring to it is, well, bear with me if this episode goes a bit longer, although I'll try to keep it short. So, talking about Khattar, what is happening in Haryana today? You have seen for the last several weeks now, this total, I would say, not anarchy as the CM is talking about. What I would say is for the last several weeks, you have been witnessing this agitation and things are kind of getting out of control. The Chief Minister is not looking like, or he is looking like completely out of depth. So, can you imagine a Chief Minister running scared in his own state? This Republic Day, he was to hoist the tricolour in Panipat, but he shifted the venue. He did it in Panchkula. Why? Because there was this apprehension of, farmers coming there, protesting and disrupting the function. It's not the first time. Earlier also, he had to cancel a meeting, a Kisan Panchayat in a Karnal village. He had to turn back his helicopter because farmers had vandalized the helipad. The same thing had happened earlier in another Karnal village. In Ambala, farmers were there showing him black flags. Now, I'm not getting into the merit or demerit of the farmers' agitation. All I'm saying is the Chief Minister of the state does not seem to be in total control. Now, there is a crisis staring at his government. You see what is happening in BJP's ally, JJP, Dushyant Chautala's JJP. Now, you have this discontentment brewing in JJP. About 5 or 6 of the 10 JJP MLAs, they are looking shaky, jittery, because, the agitation has been on for a couple of months now. If it does not subside, they will have issues going back to their constituency whenever they go for the elections. And they are exploring their options. Obviously, Dushyant Chautala is here. Or the crisis managers of the government, they are feeling insecure. You saw how Khattar brought Dushyant to meet Amit Shah and the Prime Minister here in Delhi. But what I'm driving at is, whenever there is a crisis in Haryana, I'm talking about Khattar's tenure, he seems to be out of depth. You remember 2016 Jat reservation stuff? He was just not able to control it. He recovered from there. It was a big setback because it exposed his lack of administrative acumen. You remember when he became the Chief Minister, he did not have any administrative experience at all. He was Prime Minister Modi's friend and he was picked up. Although he has a clean image, and people have been talking about it because, in recruitments in Haryana now, you don't really see any scandal, don't hear about any scandal. It's supposed to be pretty transparent. It's a big departure from those days when, just to elaborate actually, with one instance, I'll just try to show the entire thing. Now, Om Prakash Chautala, the former Chief Minister, he's serving a jail term because of teachers' recruitment scam. Even earlier in Haryana, every time you have a recruitment for some government posts, you have some scandal, some scam kind of, cropping up. People make allegations that, this caste has been favored, that caste has been favored, there have been irregularities, money has been exchanging hands. All these allegations have been there. You have to give it to Khattar that he has a clean image, he has maintained that clean image actually. So government recruitments have been happening, but you have not really heard of any scandal. Land acquisition deals again. You have another Haryana Chief Minister, Bhupinder Singh Hooda, he has been facing probes for those alleged irregularities, which the Congress says is a part of political vendetta. But anyway, we are not getting into that. So whenever it comes to a crisis in Haryana, Khattar does not seem to be in control. The same thing is happening here. He's running away from trouble spots. Now, you may be, as the BJP people analyzed for us then, that you bring a Punjabi Khatri as the chief minister candidate, and then he'll be able to basically somehow get the non-Jat votes together, mobilize or galvanize those non-Jat votes, and that will work for the BJP. That could have been a purpose, that's part of the political strategy of the BJP, that's fine. But then you have to deliver on governance. Somehow, Khattar has not been able to meet those expectations, and it becomes more glaring during crisis times. Now, today, what does the Prime Minister need? He needs his Chief Minister to go out to those people, try to convince them of the merits of the farm laws against which they have been protesting. But what do you see? The Chief Minister is actually taking on those farmers. In his Republic Day address, he was saying that, you have the freedom to agitate, but you cannot spread anarchy. For the Chief Minister to talk such provocative things actually shows his inexperience. He's expected to reach out to them and somehow bring them back on the negotiating table. And here what he was saying, that okay, Centre is dealing with the farmers, but the Chief Minister is completely aloof. He's not part of the entire process. And he's keeping himself aloof, that's the worst part. But while talking about Khattar, we are talking about a larger problem in the BJP today. What you have seen, well, all of us acknowledge, everybody knows that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the most popular leader in the country today. You have Amit Shah then, who is the most shrewd political strategist that any party has today. And yet, where they are floundering is when they start picking up new people in the states to promote them as new faces, sidelining the veterans. Somehow their experiments are not working. We saw what happened in Jharkhand. They brought an OBC face, Raghuvar Das, in a tribal-dominated state. He himself lost the election. Party, of course, lost the election. They brought a Brahmin in Maharashtra. We have discussed all this. Unfortunately, this caste angle is a reality of Indian politics. We cannot really ignore this. In Maharashtra, the experiment was you bring a Brahmin in a Maratha-dominated state, and he'll be able to bring all others together. Hasn't really worked that way. But it's not about the political strategy per se. There is something about the individuals who Modi and Shah have picked up and how they have turned out to be a big failure or a big disappointment for Modi. You look at the chief ministers who Modi and Shah picked up since 2014. You have Vijay Rupani in Gujarat, you have Pramod Sawant in Goa, you have Trivendra Rawat in Uttarakhand, you have N. Biren Singh in Manipur. I mean, BJP has about a dozen chief ministers today. Look at them. Can you put a finger on any of them? Okay, he's going to be a mass leader. He has become a mass leader. I'm not going to talk about Shivraj Singh Chauhan or Yediyurappa. They have been mass leaders. They are not actually Modi's finds. We are talking about new leaders, new faces, which were actually promoted in the states. Well, you can always talk about Yogi Adityanath in UP, although I'm not very sure whether he was Modi's first choice. There have been all kinds of talks about this, how, Manoj Sinha was being sent there, how the RSS intervened. I'm not, these are all theories. I'm not really very sure about the entire process, how it happened. But largely, look at all the chief ministers who Modi and Shah have picked up since 2014. Most of them have failed to meet their expectations. What is going wrong? Probably the two of them have to sit together and again revisit the criteria. But the problem that the BJP will be facing in future is if these leaders keep failing. You bring one Gajendra Singh Shekhawat from Rajasthan, you sideline Vasundhara Raje, but Shekhawat is not actually matching up. He's not somebody who is known beyond his own constituency, Jodhpur. How are you going to take on Vasundhara Raje? How are you going to basically emerge as the next leader, actually? Similar thing in other states. In Odisha, for instance, Modi and Shah actually indirectly projected Dharmendra Pradhan as the future BJP leader. Didn't click. BJP ended up with just 23 seats of the 146 that the party contested. It was a flop show there also. There's something wrong with the criteria which Modi and Shah need to think about. Because remember, when Vajpayee was there, even when the NDA, BJP lost power, for 10 long years the BJP was not in power. But then the BJP had very strong regional satraps. Modi himself as Gujarat Chief Minister. You had Shivraj Singh Chauhan, you had Raman Singh, you had Vasundhara Raje. So even if the party was out of power at the center, all these leaders actually kept the party afloat. It was always relevant. Today, what you're witnessing is, as long as Modi is there, he is still very popular. We have just seen the Mood of the Nation survey by the India Today. I mean, even this pandemic management, about 73% of the people think he did a very good or outstanding job. His popularity is intact. But what after he hangs up his boots? 5 years later, 6, 7 years later, we are talking about the absence of any mass leaders in the states, especially the choices of the CM faces in those states which Modi and Shah made. Somehow those choices are not working.